Or the other PowerPoint. Welcome, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started so we can get you out of here as well. Welcome you to our divisional meeting for academic affairs, Middle Georgia State, as we prepare to begin this year. We have now had the opportunity to work together for just a little over 6 months. I want to take a minute to thank you for a very warm welcome and for the opportunity it's been here to be here to get to know this institution and get to know many of you. This is really a great place to work. As we heard from the chancellor earlier today and from the president, we're really fortunate to wake up every morning and be able to come to work knowing that the purpose of why we're here is to help someone's life be a little bit better, helping their mind to be a little more open to other alternatives or views, to other people, other cultures, have the opportunity to try to make the burdens they carry a little lighter. So thank you for the work you do, and thank you for the opportunities that we get the chance to work together. We're going to begin by celebrating a little bit and welcoming a few new colleagues. So put your hands like this for just a minute. Look at them. They're going to get sore. You ready for this? I want to first introduce the new faculty who are starting with us this fall. If they're here, could they please stand? Dr. Shauna Chessman-Mean of Biology. Dr. Christian Kim of Music. Dr. Scott Hines of Psychology. Dr. Amanda Chase of Psychology also. Ms. Linda McGee in Nursing. Ms. Whitney Hamilton in Health Sciences. Dr. Vicky Sandoval in Information Technology. And Dr. Yassine Alhaj Yassine in Finance. Next, we're going to take a chance to recognize those who are promoted and tenured this year. So I'm going to read the list of those who are promoted to full professor. Dr. Lisa Brode, and when your name's read, please stand. Dr. Sharon Colley, Dr. Stephen Fuller, Dr. Matthew Jennings, Dr. Cherie Keith, Dr. Julie Lester, Dr. Benita Muth, Dr. Anthony Narsing, Dr. Kim Pickens, and Dr. Laura Thomason. Let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations. Now to the list of those who are tenured and promoted. Dr. Jonathan Cannon, Dr. Alan Clark, Dr. Carrie Justice, Dr. Andre Nicholson, Dr. Andrew Reeves, Mr. Stephen Stikowski, Dr. Sabrina Wenger. Please stand. Thank you. And those who are tenured or promoted to associate professor, Dr. Christine Rigsby, Dr. Shannon Beasley, Mr. Jeff Wiles, Ms. Grace Adams Square, Dr. Dorothy Howell. My notes are correct, which I assume they are. That's everybody. Anybody we left out? Just in case. Next, we're going to take a minute to celebrate many of the good things that are happening in the colleges and schools. We first want to invite the lists of accomplishments are way too long, so I'm just going to highlight just a few of them. So let's first invite all of our colleagues in health sciences to please stand. Occupational, that's like stand, here we go. Some of their accomplishments from last year: occupational therapy, MGA students had a 96% pass rate, with the state average being 89%, the national average being 63%. Respiratory therapy had a 100% first-time pass rate on the TMC exam. 100% of graduating seniors are now registered respiratory therapists. Nursing, the NCLEX pass rate for ASN was 95%. BSN students was 88%, with a national average of 84%. Let's thank all our colleagues in health sciences. Next, I hope arts and sciences don't mind standing too long, because they've got a long list. Everybody who's in arts and sciences, please stand. And this is just a selection. In English, Dr. Crystal O'Leary Davidson and Dr. Lisa Bro and Miss Mert Garria's book, Monsters of Film, Fiction, and Fable, The Cultural Links Between the Human and Inhuman, was published by Cambridge Scholars Publishing this summer of 2018. In history, Matt Jennings published Ocmulgee, A Brief History with Field Notes. In media and cultural arts, Mr. D.L. Lee Simmons was featured as an artist in Big Ink's large woodcut printing event at Atlanta Printmaker Studio the weekend in October of 2017. He also was a solo artist at the Francis Sewell Plunkett Gallery in January of 2018. In natural sciences, Dr. John Wei Wang was a co-author of an article in the European Journal of Inorganic Chemistry entitled Synthesis, Linear, Nonlinear, Optical Properties, I don't know how you get all that in one sentence, of phosphonato-substituted bithiophene derived from 2-2-dimethyl-1 propidenyl. I gave it a good effort. Let's give them a round of applause. So thank you to our colleagues in arts and sciences. Please be seated. Next, education and behavioral sciences. If you could please stand. There's more of you out there than that. Here we go. The Center for Applied Research and Education, CARE, has recently completed work for the Macon-Bibb County Justice and Mental Health County Jail Project, and work underway for a second Department of Justice grant that will be $270,000. The Department of Teacher Education and Social Work has successfully added an evening track cohort for elementary education programming, increasing geographic reach of the MAT programs, and is partnering with Bibb County Schools on an innovative teacher candidate as paid interns program. The Department of Psychology and Criminal Justice are now offering both the namesake bachelor's degree programs in fully online format. Let's thank Education and Behavioral Sciences. Next, information technology, please stand. They had a proposal for MGA Direct program improved in IT, and we'll talk about MGA Direct in just a minute. They launched undergraduate and graduate concentrations in critical infrastructure and management, and 5 faculty administrators from information technology received 2 awards for the best conference paper. These in addition to a long list of publications by their faculty. Thank you very much, our colleagues in IT. Next, aviation, please stand. Aviation this year added the Adele Flight Training Facility, giving us access straight into South Georgia and North Florida markets. They were selected as 1 out of 8 institutions, as we heard this morning, across the country to be a part of the Delta Propel program. This is significant. And on the 16th, we'll hold the first of any event like that at any of the partner institutions right in Eastman, Georgia. And they were selected as 1 out of 34 institutions across the country to work with Delta on a school partnership for maintenance training. So thank you to our aviation colleagues. Next, our colleagues in the School of Business, please stand. There they are. Dr. Anthony Narsing, Troy Sullivan, Miss Mimi Ford were awarded the Best Distinguished Research Paper Award at the MBAA International Conference for their work titled Proposed Border Tax Adjustment, Implications to the U.S. Auto Industry. Dr. Narsing, Dr. Sullivan, and Ms. Ford also presented 2 papers this year, one titled Integrating Experiential Learning in the Business Curriculum, Lessons Learned. Ms. Ford also presented a paper at an entitled An Update on the 2017 Tax and Jobs Act. Also, the accounting students, think about this one, ranked second statewide in internal audit case competition. So let's take our colleagues from business. One group we also want to thank is everyone who is not necessarily affiliated with a college or school, but is affiliated with the Department of Academic Affairs and the Provost office. And so if you have not yet stood up, please do so now. Thank you. Until you get a window of opportunity to see what happens in a Provost office, you don't really appreciate the mountain of work that has to happen just so faculty can show up and teach. That's not just the Provost office, it's financial aid, it's admissions, it's the registrar's office. There's a whole workload of administrative minutia that has to happen just so you can show up and have students there to teach. So we need to always be appreciative of what happens outside the classroom so what happens inside the classroom can continue to happen smoothly. Now, we're going to go through a presentation fairly briefly, and I hope in this presentation you get a feel for where we're headed as a division. And I am more than happy to talk to you about any of this at any time. If you have questions, feel free to stop by the Provost's office. I'm there. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Send me an email. My personal cell is 770-301-6835. Call me anytime. But I want to be clear that now that we've gone through new faculty and accomplishments, why we exist as a division. We exist as a division so what happens in the classroom can continue to happen and continue to get better. What happens in the classroom when a faculty member interacts with students in a classroom environment, that is the inflection point for the institution. It's the point at which the trajectory of the institution changes. Nothing else matters if what happens between faculty and staff, or faculty and students in the classroom isn't impacted in a positive way. So as we work through all the other issues, we work through accreditations, we work through budgeting, we work through all those things, this is the outcome. I want to talk about each of these three elements for a few minutes because there are things that you need to be aware of, initiatives that are a part of what we're doing to try to improve the classroom. But remember, unless it influences this in a positive way, it's really not worth doing. Let's first begin with you. There are a lot of things that you, as an employee of the institution, as a part of the Board of Regents system, the University System of Georgia, need to be aware of and can be influenced by. So let's walk through this just a little bit. And these are some technical things that we need to review, but you need to be aware, and I need to make sure that you're aware of them. First, if you're employed outside the institution, there's an outside occupational form that has to be approved each semester. So make sure that you do that if you have any outside employment. There have been a lot of cases recently in the university system of conflicts of interest. If you serve on boards outside the institution, you're getting paid by anybody outside the institution, make sure you've gone through the conflict of interest policy. If you're curious, just look at what happened at Georgia Tech. Being aware that we're consistent with our MGA brand, these are all things that we have to do that doesn't necessarily interact with our daily work in the classroom, but we need to be aware of them. Make sure we're also on our private use of MGA assets. That means that if you're using your computer, iPad, whatever, for anything personal, make sure you've reviewed that policy and you're compliant with it. Ethics, you will find on September 1st, Ms. Stroud's going to send an email to the entire campus. Us in academic affairs need to be aware of that. There's a list of mandatory training we have to do from the university system each year. That list will be outlined in that email that's coming, so heads up on that one. Other things that influence us outside the classroom, updating motor vehicle policy, making sure that's there. This mandatory training and ethics week, this has become a serious thing that the Board of Regents is very interested in. That's coming up. You'll hear more of that. I'm giving you a heads up now. Gratuities and gifts, there's a policy, and also a policy for proper use of leave, which doesn't influence faculty as much as it does staff, but make sure we're aware of those things. That's a little bit of the environment that you have to be aware of so you don't just show up and teach. It's also part of the employment contract we have with the institution, the University System of Georgia. Now, let's talk for just a minute about the classroom itself. After we talk about students, I got these in the wrong order here. We know that when a student shows up in a classroom, they're not just there to learn, and that's not the only thing on their mind. As faculty members, we have to come in prepared, ready to teach, ready to help them change. As was mentioned by the president and the chancellor, we have a blended function as an institution, which means by definition, a lot of our students come underprepared for college or university work. It also means they come with a whole lot of baggage. And as an institution, that's not something we want to get rid of. It's something we want to learn to serve well. We want to make sure when a student shows up, if they show up, they're a first-generation college student, they're not really prepared, they don't know what their work habits are, they haven't really been taught or had to study before, they may have financial concerns, they may be really upset with the financial aid office because the financial aid office may have told them the truth, which is a difficult thing to hear sometimes. I know we have a significant number of our students that carry themselves full-time workloads while being a full-time student. We think back to our time as a student, a lot of us did the same thing, or at least worked part-time. It is an incredibly difficult thing to do, even if you know how to study and even if you know how to work. Our students come with a lot of baggage, and so we're asked to do a lot of things outside the classroom as faculty members. Students have the same issues. But we've got to make sure as faculty members we're being sensitive to that. Also, there are times when there's high levels of anxiety, stress, or life events that happen. We've got to take those into consideration, take the issues faculty have to deal with as we work toward understanding better what happens in the classroom. We are continuing to try to improve our data processes so that we understand our students better. We pulled down a database of every student that's taken a class here since the merger, and we're starting to study those who finish, those that don't, and those that don't, where they go. As a good rule of thumb, if a student comes here and finishes, they're one of the success stories, which are about 30%. The other students who don't finish here, and this may be a shocking statistic, we often think if they leave here, they're transferring somewhere else. Of those who don't finish here, one of them is likely to finish at another USG institution. One of them is likely to finish at a tech school in a trade program. A very small percent transfer to other online for-profit proprietary institutions, but almost two of them don't show up anywhere in the clearinghouse, which means they come here. Maybe they try us for a semester, maybe they try us for a year or two, but when they leave here, what do? They don't go anywhere. We have got a very challenging work before us, and that's to find what we can do to help those students make sure that they're making the decisions they need to finish so that their future will be brighter and their opportunities will be brighter. And most importantly, they'll have the transformational experience that a liberal arts-based university experience can give them. Let's talk about what the university system and the institution are doing to help improve what happens in the classroom. Let's go around this circle. The chancellor mentioned these three priorities: affordability, efficiency, and an increase in credentials, particularly bachelor's degrees. That's what the USG is focused on and working toward. The CAR initiative, I want to explain what that is. Raise your hand if you've heard of CAR. Raise your hand if you've heard of CAR before today. Maybe a third of you. The University System of Georgia, and this CAR initiative can be a scary thing. I want to help alleviate some of that concern, although I can't alleviate all of it. The University System of Georgia, when they started these consolidation efforts, one of the initiatives was to save money in delivering high-quality education at lower cost. It all happened. They haven't really measured how much money they've saved. So the legislature came back and said, we just went through this consolidation. You now are at 26 institutions. Show us how much money you've saved. And they didn't really have a good answer. And so Kyle Marrero, who's the president of the University of West Georgia, and John Fuchco are the two that are leading this initiative under the direction of the chancellor. And it's a comprehensive administrative review. They're reviewing every person's job that works for the university system outside of faculty whose only responsibilities are to teach, research, and serve. So it doesn't directly impact faculty and what happens in the classroom, but if you're a faculty who has any administrative responsibility or all staff, particularly in certain functional areas they're looking at, they're reviewing all of the work that's done to try to find ways that they may do it more efficiently. It'll be about a 2-month project that starts this next week. Lots of surveys, lots of details, a big consulting company. We're in the last wave of USG institutions are going through it. When it's over, they'll provide some report back to the system office. We'll get a report back in terms of how we do compared to our peers, compared to other institutions in the Southeast, to see if there are ways we can build some efficiencies. Even us being as efficient as we are and as affordable as we are, CAR is an effort by the system for all institutions to find ways in which we can do better there. Momentum Year, you've probably heard of Momentum Year, hopefully, a little bit. Momentum Year is, and some of you may not understand what the intent is, but it's not just a USG initiative. Momentum Year is something that's been done lots of places across the country. It's the idea that when we bring a freshman in or a new student to the institution, what happens during their first year is really important to their overall success. That means that they take 9 hours of their first 30 in the area they intend to graduate. It means they complete, which is now policy, English and math during their first 30 hours, because across the country, those statistics suggest if a student can get engaged in something they're interested in early, they're more likely to stay. That's a lot of the Momentum Year effort. Complete College Georgia has to do with driving up the number of credentials we're trying to grant. Again, not lowering standards at all, but finding the false barriers, which we have some, and we'll talk about those in a minute, to help students progress toward graduation. The Gateway to Completion Initiative, this is also a nationwide initiative to identify gateway courses that if a student does not do well in, they're likely to drop out. We, as an institution, revised some of those courses last year. This year, we're going to focus on the learning support, English, and one of the math courses to try to revise those to make sure we're helping students be as successful as possible. Now, down the right side, we have the LEAP initiative, which really is an effort by AAC&U to try to drive the liberal education and find a closer connection to liberal education and fulfilling career and success in life. SACS, we've got that regional effort. We currently, as an institution, have a clean bill of health with SACS. Dr. Cantwell and all those who have worked on it have done a great job. We're in good standing with SACS as an institution, but SACS doesn't ever go away. So we'll keep working on that. Title IV financial aid funding. This is one of the reasons that SACS is really important. That includes Title IV financial aid funding includes Pell Grants. It includes loans. It includes subsidized loans. That's all the money the federal government gives. It's about $1.5 billion a year. And if we get in trouble with SACS, students don't get financial aid. If students get financial aid, they don't come and can't pay tuition. We don't have students. And when you look at our sector of institution that we are and the type of students that we serve, staying in good graces with Title IV financial aid funding is critical to our ability to serve that population of students. We distribute a lot of financial aid. One thing that we've made some progress on but have got to continue to work on is course and program scheduling. We now have a clear map of which programs we offer on which campuses. We're going to continue to refine what courses we offer within each program on each campus, and so that a student can plan from the day they show up on campus which classes they need to take on that campus so they can graduate within 4 years or 2 years of an associate's program. I'll talk about that more in just a minute. We talk about enrollment. That is going to continue to be a push. I'll talk about the details of why in just a minute. So those are the administrative, kind of the bureaucracy we've got to meander through as we try to fulfill our vision as an institution to make sure that we are not just teaching, that we're transforming lives through extraordinary higher learning. And why do we need to do that? This was in USA Today last week. Look across the state of Georgia, 26 USG public institutions. What is the city that is hit hardest by extreme poverty in the state of Georgia? Now, I fully recognize we don't serve a city as an institution. We serve a group of cities, right? And a region of the state. But think about this and think about our ability as an institution to lift lives and elevate Middle Georgia. It's coming, I think. Macon was listed as the city that was hit hardest by extreme poverty. Look at what those metrics suggest. Not just poverty, it's concentrated poverty. We're up 14 percentage points from the 2010 census, and that is more concentrated in lower income areas. The GDP growth was 0.7 in Macon compared to 2.3% across Georgia. Look at the difference in unemployment. We are fortunate to show up every day with an opportunity to change lives. We've got to continue to work together to make sure that we're not just elevating Middle Georgia State, but elevating Middle Georgia and the region around us. So what is our strategy? The strategy is about doing things different than we've done them in the past. A set of activities we're going to change the way in which we're going to try to accomplish the vision a little more efficiently, a little more effectively. The president reviewed this strategic plan, and you've got it outlined there on the screen. There are 7 major goals and 3 initiatives. We will continue to focus on this as we move forward and implement initiatives within the division. Each year we'll identify specific things we're going to do to accomplish each one of those goals. We have those outlined in a sheet that I won't put it on the screen because the print would be way too small, but I'll circulate that to all of you so you can know the major initiatives we're going to try to push to make sure that we are growing enrollment with purpose, owning student success, and building a shared culture. And that culture needs to be shared not only with the Division of Academic Affairs, but across the campus and across all of divisions within the campuses. We mentioned a couple things we're trying to do specifically. We talked about academic strategy. I got a lot of good feedback from that paper we circulated earlier about academic identity and strategy. We're still working on updating some language related to how it's described. But as a division, these 3 things will continue to be very important. We've got to enthrone teaching. We are a state university with a teaching mission and a teaching focus. So as we look at all the activities we do, teaching should be the primary driver. And it's not just teaching, it's student learning. So that will be the driving focus of how we make administrative decisions. How is it going to help faculty in the classroom, and how is it going to help students succeed with faculty in the classroom? That will influence our budget. It'll influence the way we distribute resources and the way we make decisions. Second one is elevate program completion thinking. What does this mean? It means, as I mentioned, when a student shows up on campus, they know which classes to take from day one so they can finish in 2 or 4 years with their associate or bachelor's degree program. This is an area we have a lot of work to do in. If you look through the course scheduling, and I would invite you to do it, look through the places that we offer each of the programs, which you've got a document that I'll show you in just a second, or at least show a link to for you in just a second, that shows which ones we offer where. I circulated by email earlier this year. Pick a program, maybe one that's outside of your area. Remember the IT staff or business staff, pick English or history. If you're in arts and sciences, pick somebody else's degree. and look through our course offerings over the last few years. See if you can say, okay, I want to pick the BS in biology, for instance, or whichever degree on the Cochrane campus. If I was a student in that program, can I look through and pick the right courses in the right sequence to be able to graduate and put a 4-year plan of study in place? We've made a lot of progress, but we are not there yet. If we want to do anything as a division to help students progress toward graduation, we've got to offer the right seats in the right places. That's something we'll continue to work on. That's what we mean when we say elevate program completion thinking. It's not just getting students in seats. It's about getting students in programs from which they will graduate. And also a part of Elevating Middle Georgia is extending the great work that we do, that we celebrated a few minutes ago, into our local communities, finding ways to engage people outside the classroom and outside the institution, and knowing the value that we have here. So when someone asks them, where should I go to school? What should I study? That everybody in our community has a natural connection to Middle Georgia State, and this becomes the first choice for everybody that can come, or everybody that's interested in higher education. So operationally, how are we doing some of those things from the Provost's office? This website, you are not supposed to be able to read that. I want to be clear. It's a screenshot from the website we have. This is the least attractive website you'll probably ever see. It's just a table. It hosts a ton of information. It's the first place in which we've tried to consolidate all the information for every academic program we have. And we'll send the link out. It's underneath the shared governance website. But if you look through, this is the graduate programs at the top. This will show you when the degree was approved, what the program name is, which school it's in, when it was approved internally, when it was approved by the Board of Regents, when it was approved by SACS, any notifications or updates or changes to the program. And then we have across the top, we have lists of course schedules of places that students can earn take each one of the classes at the different locations. And then we have a curriculum map and assessment plan for each of the programs. This is close to being built out, but this is a source that you can use as an advisor, as a faculty member, to know exactly what's going on with academic program anywhere across the institution. And we're going to make it look a lot prettier, but right now we're focused on getting the data right. Once we get that done, we'll make it attractive. But please review that and continually review it to make sure that your information is right, because we've got to improve the way we communicate and advise with students so they can know which pathway they need to take toward their graduation. The next tool operationally we're using is this tool called My Degree. This is a snapshot from the website that'll tell you a little bit about it. But if you log into Swords, or a student logs into Swords, they can pick a major. We built them out this spring. There are a slot for every semester they would be here if they're here for 4 years to graduate. Right now, and please talk about this on day one, we talk about the type of students we serve. We can't just expect them to show up, learn biology, math, science, whatever it is, history, and go home and be okay. We have to do a lot of hand-holding. So take a few minutes at the beginning of your class and ask them, have you built out your 4-year plan of study or your 2-year plan of study? Tell them to log into Swords. They click right on My Degree. And as soon as it pops up, they can pick a major. It'll track their progress toward the degree. They then have the list of courses they need to complete. They can drop them in each semester, so they'll have their own sequence. Once that's there, on the back end, we get an email every day with all that data extracted that'll tell us what courses we need to schedule for the students to be able to graduate on time. That's in place, it's happening. What we don't have is students who have built out their plans of study yet. If you can help with that, that's a huge thing you can do as soon as students show up. Help them say, we want you here. We want you to graduate from here. Take the time to build that schedule so we can offer what you need to graduate from here. That's a big help operationally we're working on. Also, we're trying to do a better job at providing faculty development. We had a big data summit this spring. This fall, we're providing two very extensive faculty development days, one in Cochrane and one on the Macon campus. And there'll be lots of breakouts on lots of different sections. The Academic Affairs team has put a lot of good work into it. So please make sure you take the opportunity to attend. Everyone is welcome. Now, there's a chance you haven't listened to anything I said yet until money's on the slide. Let's talk about money for just a minute. I want you to make sure that as a division, make sure all of us as a division have a clear picture of why enrollment matters. We are a low-cost institution. Our tuition rate is very low, which means we don't have a lot of money. We also, and these graphs are these are from last year, but they're the same thing that Ms. Stroud shared earlier that show us where the money comes in, where it goes. Most of our money comes from the state. A portion of it comes from tuition. A little portion of it comes from auxiliary services and other revenue sources. But why is growth important? If you look at the overall footprint, both geographically and in terms of physical space we have as an institution, it is a huge footprint. 180-mile loop if you drive between all the campuses. You look at the number of square feet in building space we have to maintain, it's incredibly expensive. Now, I want to be clear, if we look at the 5-year window of the strategic plan, it is never mentioned in there that we're going to change that other than to grow it. We're going to redo some buildings in Cochrane, and we're going to add dorms on the Macon campus. And then the enrollment center that was mentioned. Those are probably the 3 physical changes that will happen to campus within the next 5 years. We'll get on some other lists of projects that will happen later on, way down the road, but it's not likely that our physical footprint is going to grow much more than that, and it's certainly not going to shrink. Now, when you have a footprint that is that size, it is expensive to run, it's expensive to maintain, it's expensive to keep the grass cut, the curbs painted, all of those things. From a financial analysis viewpoint, we call those a lot of the fixed expenses. We don't intend to change that. So what happens if you look at that graph on the right? That graph, and I know you can't see the details, I'd encourage you to go back to your computer and look up break-even point. Break-even point is a simple formula that's represented in this graph that shows you at what point do you have enough students you can cover your fixed expenses. Because each student that comes, there's a variable cost which is providing instruction for that student, faculty salaries and so on. There's also a portion that goes to the bottom line to help the organization become financially solvent. You have to have a certain number of students to cover your fixed costs. Once you've covered the fixed costs, what happens to the next student? All of the revenue above the cost of providing instruction can then be used for other things for the institution to do, like faculty development or faculty travel. We don't have a lot of money right now, and you know as you look through your department's budgets, we don't provide a lot of money for people to go to conferences. We don't provide a lot of money for supplemental research funding. We're intentionally putting that money into the classroom to help the classroom grow. But the more students we get above that break-even point in terms of covering the cost of the institution, each additional student adds a larger percent of the dollars we can allocate to faculty development, faculty travel, and faculty supplemental research support. But why is growth important? We have got to get out of the point that we have 7,000, 7,500 students, and we're living on the breadcrumbs that are left over. Institutionally, we're built with our physical and geographic footprint to serve somewhere between probably 10 and 12,000 students. That's taking into consideration the additional costs of hiring more faculty to teach the students because we're getting farther away from that break-even point. I hope that's clear. There are 2 primary drivers between enrollment being such a big push. The first one is the most important. We need to help more people have the transformative experience of a university degree. It helps them in the market, but it changes the trajectory of the way that they think, and it helps elevate Middle Georgia. That's the first reason. The second reason for institutional health is we've got to get to the point that we have enough students to cover the fixed costs associated with the institution so that we can grow into a healthy position, which financially we're not in the black, or not in the red, meaning we don't run at a negative, but we're squeaking through the black right now. We need to grow to the point that we have some money to develop and continue to build culture. So I hope you understand from a financial perspective why growth is important. A couple things you need to understand about the budget. We got a little over $1 million last year from the university system. We put those almost exclusively, with one or two exceptions, into faculty lines and 4 new advisors. I have been shocked since I've been here, and you sit around the president's cabinet, and I shouldn't have been surprised, I was really surprised about the high priority everybody around the cabinet places on instruction in the classroom. I come from other institutions where that was not the case. Academic affairs had to justify every position, how many seats they would have, what they would do. But here, and this is a great thing about Middle Georgia State, everyone defers to academic affairs and defers to academic affairs first. What do you need to provide quality instruction in terms of faculty lines, advisors, those things? We'll put that first. And then if we have some room, we can squeeze out some other things after, we'll do it. We have a great culture that values what we do. We need to continue to leverage that and continue to provide growth so that we can have more students be influenced by the experience they have here. Now, I wanted to make sure I got 2 slides in here about money. Second slide is this. People asked, well, so we get a little money in our department for development. I hear on occasion that other people are getting stipends or other things for a bunch of stuff. Well, I found it to be somewhat difficult to track down all of that other stuff. So this is, and you may walk up to me after and say, you forgot, and it's not that I forgot anything, it's I didn't know. So these are the places. So right now you teach your load, you make sure you're generating credit hours. If we need you to teach an overload, we pay about $3 million a year in part-time faculty and overloads. We're trying to shift that around a little bit for a lot of reasons, especially because we've got these budget cuts coming. But if you hear about other places people are getting money, these are the sources. So let's walk through them. There is money available for QEP fellows. There's not a lot. All of these pockets are incredibly small. But if you're interested in experiential learning, please go see Chris of Ottawa, and he'll talk you through how you can become a QEP fellow and how you can help influence the experiential learning students have on campus. There's an incredibly small stipend available. Second, the development committee of the Faculty Senate. They have a pot of money that includes a small slice for international travel for faculty and some other developmental proposals. They review and allocate that money. Next, there's an embarrassingly small amount of money for LEAP. This is run through the College of Arts and Sciences. Same thing with the Core Fellows. Core Fellows is a program that helps people adjust a course that's in the core, and they become a mentor the next year to help someone else adjust their course. This is part of our Complete College Georgia initiative. So those 4 have been around a while, and they're still going. MGA Advance is new. You saw emails about it this spring. This is a significant step forward. If you have a desire to learn something new, but preferably if you have a group of people that want to learn something new or want to learn to work together in new ways, MGA Advance is a 4 or 5 year initiative that institution-wide, it's funded at about a level of $50,000 a year, straight from a donor. That is a huge investment. From someone to write a check, $50,000 a year, just for us to be able to develop in areas we need to. Go back and look at MGA Advance proposal. We've already had some good proposals come out of academic affairs. of ways in which we can find intra-team and inter-teams that need to work together on a specific topic, and give them the funding and the space to be able to do that. So those are your sources of money. That's institutional money, what we're trying to do, and why we need to grow. Those are your additional development funds that are available. Now, this is risky, but I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions about that they'd like me to answer now. We'll go with no. I want to talk to you a little about student learning and the perspective that we have. The chancellor mentioned that it's easy today to beat up on faculty. I'll tell you, 7 months ago, I was sitting as a faculty member in the School of Business at the University of West Georgia. I know it, and I've been there for a number of years. I know what it's like to be a faculty member in the classroom and feel somewhat underappreciated and undervalued. I hope you never feel that here. Everything we're trying to do is to make sure that faculty, student, and the classroom happen to the best extent possible to change the lives of students. Let's talk about how student learning is improved. And I'm going to get a little businessy, but not too much. I'm going to give an example of a simple accounting equation. It used to be, and it is still this way in some areas of the world, that if you want to buy something, you have to have the cash to buy it. Being Americans, we don't understand that. We walk in to buy something and we don't break out the wallet with a wad of cash or break out the briefcase and open it up. We typically say, where do I sign? Right? Give me the loan documents, I'll sign it, I'm good. If you look at that simple accounting equation, it's asset equals equity. If you buy a $10,000 car, you need to have $10,000 in cash. We have this thing called compound interest. We have the simple accounting equation that an asset equals not only the equity or cash you put into it, but money you can borrow so you can have the benefit, right? So we can buy a car with $2,000 cash, $8,000 loan, we get the benefit of a $10,000 car. How does that apply then to student learning? That picture on the bottom right is a picture of a book that I keep on my shelf at home. It's a 1936 edition that was my great-grandmother's of the complete works of Shakespeare. And if I wanted to learn Shakespeare, and I was applying the first part of that accounting equation, just asset equals equity, what would I do? I'd take the book out, I'd start to read at the beginning, I'd read the thousands of pages at the end, I would have learned Shakespeare. I would have carried that whole burden myself, right? And I would have learned. I'm sure this never happens at Middle Georgia State, but some people could, at other institutions, could expect a student to carry the whole burden of learning themselves. Could walk in and say, hey, the content's there, you read it, come on in, I'll give you a test, and I'll find out if you learned what you're supposed to learn. The learning is your responsibility. Just like debt can, and I recognize that may be a bad example because debt could get you in really trouble. But just like debt, it allows someone to leverage the resources they do have to get a lot greater benefit. We can start to look at student learning in new ways. Maybe we need to expand that equation a little bit. If we want somebody to learn Shakespeare, we don't just tell them to read it. We maybe talk about it, we analyze it, we see it, we write about it. Yes, of course, we read it. By leveraging multiple tools, the student can get a lot better benefit than just by having to learn it on their own. So what does this look like? Well, sometimes we do say, our students, they just have to stink and work a lot harder. If they would just do what I asked them to do, maybe their effort would lead to better student learning. That is one approach. It's very simple, but for our type of student, it's very limited. We've got to do a better job leveraging more tools to help students learn. For example, we've got to restructure the curriculum. We've got to restructure and look at delivery methods, faculty engagement. We've got to look at how social connections fit in the classroom, support services, who are we connecting them with, how are they getting advised, which schedule of classes are they taking, and yes, certainly how much effort they're putting in. There are also negatives to those things. Sometimes it's difficult as a faculty member not to get cynical or detached or burned out, I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying, and that is it's the faculty's sole responsibility for the success of the student. It's absolutely not. But it is our opportunity to work collectively and collaboratively as a group to try to find things that are working well and spread them. I'll tell you, if you want to get cynical, detached, and burnt out, keep working harder, doing the same things you've always done. If you say, well, I'm just working harder and harder and harder, and the students still aren't learning, there are other parts of that equation you can influence. I hope that this year you'll find something that's different and try it. If you're stuck at a part that students just aren't learning in this class or that class or this module or this section, walk 2 doors down and say, how do you teach this? Because what I'm doing may not be working, and I'm getting sick and tired and burned out of it. Or if you want a real strange experience, walk across campus to somebody, another college or school. Say, how do you handle this issue that comes up in the classroom? We start to have those conversations, our improvement becomes a division-wide effort and a social experience. And it's much more difficult to get burned out and detached when you're working in positive ways with a group. So don't sit in your office alone. Think widely about student learning. Think if you've tried to improve something over the last 2 or 3 years and it's getting a little stale, try something new. And if you can't find something new, go to someone else and see what they're doing new and copy it. I want to conclude with this story. I really feel fortunate to be able to show up every morning with this in mind. How can we help faculty and students have a better experience together in the classroom so that students will be here and stay and they'll have better lives? All of us are engaged in that mission, that purpose, that vision. When I was a doctoral student at the University of Kentucky a long time ago, a man named Burt came to speak to us. The sociologists, psychologists probably know that term very well. He, at the time, had just started a lot of his writing on the social network analysis of what he called structural holes. And he came to Kentucky and gave a great presentation. And in it, he shared this story. He got a PhD at the University of Chicago and had gone on to be professors at other places and done a lot of consulting, was a really well-known name. But Chicago had this issue. In one area of campus, they had a group of scholars that were focusing on strategy, the social structure of strategy. How do organizations make decisions and how do they succeed in markets? Whole separate part of the institution, they had a group of sociologists and psychologists that study social network analysis. What are the relationships people have with each other and how do they influence individual and organizational performance? He said between those two buildings, they were literally connected. There was a hallway between them. He said the hallway was beautiful marble and it was pristine. They never had to clean it because no one ever used it. Two groups of people studying the same thing who never talked to each other. That's the idea he shared behind a structural hole. There aren't places for those people to connect. His argument is we need to do a better job at brokering information between smaller groups on campus. So I hope that this year, one of the things you'll take from this message and take throughout the year is we are really a group of bright people. If you look at lots of other groups across the Middle Georgia region, we probably have a more educated population than just about anybody else. We certainly have the most educated population that is focused on elevating Middle Georgia. Certainly you have some ideas. I have ideas. Your neighbor has some ideas. Don't sit in your office or sit at home and think, come up with a great idea and just sit there. Don't think alone. Start to be a social broker and reach out and build some relationships. I'd invite you to do 3 things as we work together this year. The first one, engage in the momentum. Do something different between you, your students, and what happens in the classroom. Create an environment where you're not getting tired, worn out, burned out. You're trying new things all the time. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine at a former institution who was working in the math department, and we were talking about similar issues. He said, "Look, John, you've got to understand, my discipline has not changed in 2,000 years." And it was clear to me that his teaching style hadn't changed in 2,000 years either. There are ways in which we can change. I invite you to do something new. Second, take a chance, whether it's here in Macon area, Warner Robins, Eastman, Cochrane, Dublin, wherever you are, drive through the local community and ask yourself this question: what is education going to do to elevate Middle Georgia? Then ask yourself this question: what role is Middle Georgia State going to play in it? We've got to stay connected to our local communities and make sure that what we're doing has an influence on them. And third, please don't think alone, but be a broker. So I want to start this process off of brokering information with a little social exercise we're going to go through together. I want to make sure that our office and the Provost office and in academic affairs, that we aren't just a group, and I don't think we're that way, that we sit up in the A building, as some people call it, up on the hill, over the hill, whatever other things you say about the administration. We won't ask you to repeat them here. I want to make sure that we are closely connected to each of the colleges and schools and the faculty, and that you feel comfortable walking in the Provost's office or to any administrator in our area and bringing up whatever ideas you have. That doesn't mean we can do everything. In fact, a lot of what we'll be doing is doing fewer things, but doing better things. But I want to take the chance to do this little social experience so that we can start to be brokers together. So I'm going to list, and we have a large group of people in the leadership team. I'm just going to introduce some of them right now. So I'm John Anderson, I'm the Provost. We've got 3 associate provosts, Mary Warren, Deepa Arora, and Kevin Cantwell. Can you please stand wherever you are? I'm going to ask the 3 of you to head over and stand kind of spread out over by the exit over there. Next, we've got deans: Alex Kuhang, Ron Williams, Aiden Clark, Trip Shin, Tara Underwood, David Beek. This is where you stand up. We could ask the 3 of you, see the number 1 back there? Just kind of spread out over there by the number 1. Next, we've got a whole host of people who direct, some of which are full-time academic administrators, others who have other part-time responsibilities in the classroom, other places. Laura Thomason, Chris Savadawa, Brock Giddens, Daryl Hancock, Dee Lindsay, Michael Gibbons, Tamantha Lambert. We also need to welcome, where is she? There she is, right in the middle. She's our new director of libraries. She hasn't officially started yet, but will start soon. Loretta Clayton and Pella Murphy. You all can please stand. So if we could ask you to spread out on the back around that number 2, head in this direction. Other administrators will add to that group: Steven Savanovich and David Fuller, if you could join them as well. We started a program earlier this year, shortly after I got here. This is the Provost Fellows Program. I am so grateful when we put out the call. We had a huge number of people that applied. Unfortunately, we're not able to give everybody the opportunity to be a Provost Fellow this year that applied. But don't worry, we're going to keep it around a while. These are people who are interested in helping us study a specific topic for a year. They'll talk to anybody on campus. They'll get input from everybody. The outcome will be some type of white paper or recommendation as to how we can restructure something to serve this area better in academic affairs. It's my opportunity now to introduce the Provost Fellows for the coming year. And we'll ask the Provost Fellows, once they stand up, we're going to ask them to join on this side of the room over there. First, Amy Burke will focus on faculty development, enhancing teaching and learning. Eric Sun on enhancing advising. Chris Kearney on student retention, living learning communities in Cochrane. Kara Savanovich in enrolling in adult learners, particularly in Dublin and Warner Robins. Melinda Robinson Moffett, who's in the student Affairs Division, actually. She's going to focus on student academic pipelines, particularly an intersection between the work we're doing in internships and the work she's doing with student employment. Next, Kendra Russell focused a lot on building faculty community. And Sumitra Magshu Pennypacker. There she is. Focus on data and living and learning communities in the Macon area. Let's take just a minute to welcome the Provost Fellows and thank them for their serving this year. We'll also take a minute to introduce Jennifer Jones. Jennifer, you want to stand up and join the group on this side? Jennifer is our operations manager in the office that keeps everybody straight. So, as we prepare to wrap this up, I want to take a minute and ask you to do something. I've already asked you to do 3 things. I want to ask you to do one more. This was scheduled to go about another 37 minutes. I'm sure you've got a ton of stuff to do. But I want to start this process of brokering. So you've got a whole group of talented people who are going to be serving academic affairs all this next year. I don't want you to leave here without shaking hands with at least 5 or 7 of them, making connection, starting a friendship, talk about what they're doing, what they're interested in, share what you're doing, and let's start to broker information together so we can work together this coming year to make sure we're serving students, we're serving faculty, and we're building the classroom the way that we ought to. So take a minute to do that, and thank you very much. We'll conclude with that.